guys, and welcome to another episode of Self-Care Sunday. Now, first off, before I dive into anything in today's video, I want to just give you all a very heartfelt thank you for the conversation that last week's episode stirred up. Discussing my friendships with you, opening up in this way where I was actually talking about examples from my personal life and not just giving you general tipperies, you know what I mean? Like just giving you guys actual things, actual information on what has happened was something I was nervous about. But your comments, your DMs, your emails, you guys have been so kind to me with everything that I was like, okay, I can actually see myself doing this on a regular basis now. I feel like in a certain way, having your support, not just on this series, but for my channel in general, makes me feel like I'm headed in the right direction and I officially I don't care anymore about, or rather I'm on the journey to completely not care about things like numbers. I just know that the people who are watching, if I can make a difference, if I can make you feel like you're not alone, you really are not alone, then I will consider my job being done. I read your comments, I heard the things you had to say, I spoke to so many of you on Instagram DM. I also shared a few of the screenshots without the names being revealed. I always scratch the names out on my stories. So just thank you so much for all of the love on this on that episode from last week, and I'm here and I'm ready to talk about something new today. So as I always say, let's just dive into it. So first things first, I am going to list down all of the makeup product details down below in the info box in case you do like how the final look turns out. I would really like for you guys to check the info box. Always make sure that if I'm saying I will add a certain thing in the info box, I really do. I don't just say it and forget about it. You know, I read your comments from last week, and one of the things as a pattern from what I saw was that so many of y'all actually wanted me to talk about heartbreaks. And I was having this conversation with a few friends who I've discussed this series with, and also with Jerry. And one of the things I realized was that maybe so many people want me to talk about heartbreaks because you've had so many heartbreaks of your own. And I feel very strongly about the fact that when you're a teenager, you think that a heartbreak only involves a certain boy or a certain girl or a certain partner of some form. But as I've grown, I've kind of realized, I turned 29 last week. So when I say as I've grown, I feel like I'm probably, you know what, you guys should all go into the comments and tell me how old you are. Like stop right here and just put your age down in the comments. I would love to know what age group precisely is watching my videos in this sense. One of the things that I've realized at 29 is that heartbreaks can be of so many different kinds. I gave you guys an example of friendships in the previous video, and I didn't dive deep into it, but I think I gave you a sense of how sometimes we're people who just tend to do so much for others, and those feelings or those actions are not necessarily always reciprocated. And I think that applies to your friendships, that applies to your relationships, that applies in a romantic context. That could also apply with family, where you do so much for a sibling or a parent or an aunt or an uncle, and they just turn out to, like, you know, not really appreciate you, let alone reciprocate you. So I feel like heartbreak is an emotion that so many people resonate with in so many different ways. I'm someone who definitely resonates with heartbreaks in various contexts. But I think the main thing that I want to take away from that, I will definitely be doing a video, by the way, about my heartbreaks, like literally on people I met or liked or had feelings for before I met Jerry. That video is gonna come up. But one of the things that I took away instantly was the fact that people struggle with heartbreaks. And for me, in my learnings, in my limited experience, but experience nevertheless, I think I realized the toughest thing to do is move on from that. And when I say move on, I don't mean dump that friend and move on, or dump that relationship in any form and move on. I mean move on from that one thing that happened. So I'll give you an example over here. When I was really close to a certain friend of mine, again, whom I've talked about in the previous video, the first couple of times things happened between us, she said, I'm sorry, and she said, I'm sorry, and you move on from that instance and move over thinking, okay, it's done, she, he, they will not repeat it again, hopefully, right? Sometimes they do repeat it, and that happens, and that pulls you back into this cathartic pain of, but we already had this conversation, why is this happening again, why are you doing it again, are you doing it to hurt me, or are you doing it intentionally, like, are you doing it knowing that it will hurt me, or do you just not even take into consideration that it will hurt me? You know what I mean? So I feel like what I really want to address here is, so many of us have the ability to be like, okay, it's okay, move on. But I actually am one of these people that takes time to move on. And I feel, just going by the kind of response I got from you guys in the last video, that maybe we have more people here who might need help moving on, or who might take time moving on, or who might just need that little extra nudge. So I'm going to give you guys another example here. When someone messes up in a way that it directly hurts you, you know, and you can sit down and say that, listen, this is what hurt me, and this is what upset me, and please don't do this again, or this is what it triggered in me and that's why it's upset me. Open your channels of communication. And I want to say something here, and this is something I've personally experienced. So many times when someone has said, oh, but you know, you're overreacting, or oh, you're too emotional, you're too sensitive. I've heard a lot of that in my life from people who I've considered close, obviously, in the past. But I've realized that I'm never too emotional for someone who truly cares about my emotions. You know what I mean? Like, if someone really cares about your emotions, you won't be too emotional for them. Your emotional quotient will actually be a factor that they will love you more for, because that makes you more sensitive, that makes you more caring. No? You know what I mean? Am I putting it across correctly? So I find it relatively easier to be in a space where if someone hurts you, you can say, okay, you know what, you've hurt me and so, and sometimes you can say it in your head, but you can't say it out loud. And that's a huge challenge for even someone like me, who's pretty vocal in general. But there are certain situations where I just let what's in my head just stay in my head. Sometimes it's because, oh my god, this is too much effort. Sometimes it's because, is this effort worth it? Sometimes it's also because the person has hurt you so many times in the past that you're like, you know what, maybe like we're just not meant to be on that same level, at that same frequency. Frequency is something I'm going to circle back to in a couple of minutes. Maybe I definitely want to talk about that a little bit more in detail also. For me, one of the toughest things about really maintaining relationships, friendships, people, like when I say relationships, I don't just mean romantic, I mean even your friendship is a relationship. So for me, one of the toughest things about maintaining relationship is this weird mental block that I have, and maybe I'm diving a little too deep into my philosophy here, but bear with me for 1 minute. There's this quote, and I can't remember who it's by. It says, the true essence of a man, obviously slash woman, is how he treats someone who can do him absolutely no good. You know what I mean? So you don't just talk to people nicely who have been nice to you, who have more Instagram followers than you, or who are nice to you just because they are nice to you, you should be nice to them. I mean, you need to be able to be nice to everyone. So one of the struggles I've had in my life has really, this is like, I feel like this is the center point of half my own hurt and half my own pain in life, where people are being really nice to me, but I can see them not being that way to others. And I don't want to say that that makes me judge them. It's not judge, but it's also judge. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're really nice to me, but then you're like really like you bitch about other people to me, or you're shady about other people to me, you don't like, don't make it mucky. You know what I mean? I will tend to judge you a little bit over there. I would like to say, oh, I'm someone who doesn't judge, but if you're going to be mean to someone else around me, or I can see you be insensitive or just not nice to someone else the way you are to me, I feel like that's the epicenter of half my pain. Because the thing is, I don't know how to communicate that hurt to someone, and then I don't know how to move on from that hurt to someone. You know what I mean? So if you're someone who has struggled with someone not being nice to you, you'll notice that there are times in your life where this little light bulb will go off in your head and you're like, this is what you should have said. Some people realize that much later, like the argument has gotten over 2 days ago, and then you realize मुझे ये बोलना चाहिए था उस argument में. But the thing is that you need to be able to say what you want to say at that time, and for you to be fully there, you need to listen to what the opposite person has to say. So many times I feel like human beings, we tend to hurt someone because we've been hurt in that particular way. So I had this friend who, how do I say this? So I had this friend who basically didn't realize she was being really like, not mean or harsh, but like just cold. You know, sometimes you meet certain people and they're warm and they're nice and nice to talk to. But I had this friend who was not really the warmest person in the room. And it was because she always had people who were slightly mean to her growing up or bullied her while growing up. And I realized that it was because she was always treated in a certain way, that's the only way she knows how to reciprocate. And now that reciprocate has gone into becoming part of her natural behavior. So I like to get into understanding why a person is behaving the way they're behaving. I like to see that if you're hurt, why are you hurt? What hurt you? Is that pain causing you to hurt others? Sometimes my friends tell me this all the time. My friends like, you give people too much benefit of doubt. One of my friends calls me Mother Teresa Jr. She's like, you know what, you go understanding things for everyone and you get taken advantage of. But the fact of the matter is that I would rather get taken advantage of and be empathetic than just rule everyone out to just be like बैठे बैठे सब mean है. That's not going to help anyone. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's not going to help anyone. We all have pain we're trying to move away from, we're trying to move on from. For some it's bigger pain, it's greater pain, and for some it may be smaller things. They may be a little bit more trivial. But I like the way Tati Westbrook had said one of the things she said in a video last year. She said, just because you are in a full body cast doesn't mean my broken arm doesn't hurt. So we all have different levels of pain or hurt or things we're trying to get over because we're human beings. We have been hurt over a period of time, or we have hurt others over a period of time, and maybe that guilt carries us. We are all a bad person in someone's story. You know, that I want to say for sure. Digressing, side note, I had this follower on YouTube and on Instagram who's been following me for a really long time. She's been following me for maybe 6, 7, 8 years. Just last night, it was the last thing I read before going to bed. I think it was my birthday vlog video she left a comment on, and it said, I've clicked on not interested and I don't know why your videos keep popping up on my feed. Can you please block me? You'll be doing me a huge favor. I don't want to see your videos anymore. Something to that effect. And I didn't reply. But maybe it's because I feel a real connection with my followers, because I do feel a genuine real connection with you guys. Like, I know so many of your names, I respond to your comments, it's me who's responding to your DMs or taking screenshots of your story, of your DMs and putting them on stories. Like, I'm interacting with you. And maybe it was because it was the last thing and I was sleepy and that made me emotional, and I just, for a minute, like, I felt my eyes go moist and I was like, that's so mean. Like, if you don't want to see my videos, just block me. Asking me to block you is like I'm giving you ammunition. Then you will turn around and say, उसने तो मुझे block कर दिया था. I don't want to do that. I won't do that. I refuse to do that. If you don't want to see my videos, just don't open my videos. And I thought about it for a second and I was like, you know what? Someone must have really hurt her it's just that, like, these small things that we as human beings just need to learn to move on from, in some way or the other. And for some people it's easier, for some people it's not. But that doesn't mean that the pain and the hurt can be compared at levels. Just because someone has a full body cast and someone else has a broken hand pain doesn't mean you can compare the two. I really like that Tati said that. It seemed very honest to me, and I'm sort of reminded of it by this ongoing lockdown stuff also, where people are like, say thank you. I'm one of the people who's like, acknowledge your privilege, you're not stuck at home, you're safe at home. But at the same time, I also know certain people are really going through emotional breakdowns and, kind of getting cabin fever, being cooped up in their homes for 2-3 months. I'm someone who's had my own lows during this lockdown. I feel like that deserves its own Self-Care Sunday episode. Let me know if you guys want that. The real struggles of what has happened during the lockdown for me and how I've tried to cope with it. One of the main things about moving on is how do you actually start to move on. For me, I think that once I begin the process for myself, it becomes automated after some time. I sort of go into a motion after some time. Kicking off the how do I get over this situation, this moment, this incident, this person, I feel like it can be a little bit of a tough process. In my life, I've actually had to get over a lot of friendships, which might sound strange to some, but like I talked about the demoted friendship in my last week's episode, I feel like to me those things have really taken their toll. For me, I'm someone who's always considered friendships and the people you build, you surround yourself with, the people you build your little bubble, your world around, are very, 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 very important to me. So I'm someone who has, I think my problem is that by nature I'm someone who will go the extra mile. You know what I mean? I will go out of my way to make sure you're okay. I will make sure you've reached home. If it's late in the night and you're driving by yourself or you've taken an Uber, I will probably come and drive you home. I think that is my biggest problem. I shouldn't call it a problem because it's a good thing, but I think that the doing acts that are so nice, also somewhere subconsciously you tend to expect others to do the same for you. So I've unfortunately, because of that expectation, felt let down by so many people. Some have actually let me down, and in some cases I think it's my level of sensitivity that I need to work on. I think it's a fair share of both. So I feel like when I'm trying to get over a certain person, situation, whatever it may be, number one is I go back to journaling. Like, I'm someone who's journaled on and off a lot in my life, and what I will journal will be a vent. I love venting out my thoughts. If you're someone who can't write down your thoughts, it's okay. Record voice messages for yourself, record a little selfie video, keep these videos private of course, for yourself. I feel like when you hear what you have to say, or when you read what you have to say, you start reasoning with the situation a lot better. So for example, a certain situation, obviously if you're hurt, it makes you really like emotional. Anything makes you emotional in that context. So for you to look at something objectively and understand what the person did to upset you, to hurt you, and what you can do to make sense of it, in the sense ke unhone jo kiya, kyun kiya, kind of a situation, to just understand, you have to be objective, So for me, the number one thing that I do is I start writing, I start listening to my own thoughts, and I start trying to understand that, okay, if this has happened, how can I move from here positively? What can I take away from this incident? I have to tell you, obviously, this is much easier said than done. This takes time to practice, this takes time to master, this takes time to even fully understand, in all honesty, because it sounds so simple, na? Write down, read, hear your thoughts, understand where that person was coming from, find an objective middle ground. It sounds really simple, like a little lullaby, but it's something that took me a lot of time to just completely understand that this is actually a great process to move on in a way. One of the other things that I also try to do when I'm really trying to move on from something, and you'll really need to find balance for this particular thing, is I will try to focus on myself. One of the things that I think by nature a lot of us tend to do is we talk about doing this for ourselves and doing that for ourselves. I will eat better and I will work out better and I will do this for myself and I will sleep early and I'll start yoga or working out or whatever. I think that one of my ways of moving on is to try and focus on making myself a better version of myself today than I was yesterday. I don't think that there are any perfect people out there. So when I get like Instagram DMs from followers saying things like, oh my god, is there anything you can't do? Like when I share my cooking and stuff, they're like, you're so perfect in everything and you're this and I'm like, no, that's not true. Nobody is perfect. Am I trying to be a better version of myself? Yes, I am. And I think that for me, that really diving into personal examples here. I was 17. I know I've talked about this. When I liked this boy who said I wasn't good looking enough for him, and the way it hit my self-esteem at that time, I cannot even begin to tell you. Like, I have spent a lot of time trying to rebuild myself from there. In a really weird and twisted way, I also go ahead and give him credit because I tried so hard after that to make sure that I look good enough. I'm doing a lot of this today. That I look good enough that I think somewhere it also boosted my usual dressing or usual makeup and landed me in the career that I am. So maybe it was meant to happen. So when I tried to move on from that in my life, it was one of the toughest phases, because to me, I just didn't feel good enough for anything. I didn't feel forget about being good enough to actually have a partner or a boyfriend. At that point of time, at 17, I just felt like I wasn't good enough for anything, because I had been hit by this huge, the self-esteem blow had really knocked me over. I had none of it left. And I felt like let's say if I had a jar of self-esteem, which was maybe halfway up at 17, you go through your ups and downs as a teenager, I was suddenly it was empty. I had nothing left. And I remember I told my mom about this, and she was like, are you serious? Did this happen? And she played such a huge role in making sure that I got my self-esteem back. She's always been so encouraging. And circling back to what I was saying, I sort of learned to focus on myself a little bit more. I learned that if I want to be, it's a really superficial phrase that I'm about to say, please don't judge me, but this is true. In our world, if you want to be treated a certain way and you want to go somewhere, right, you have to behave the part before you actually get there. It's like if you want to be CEO, you need to dressing like a CEO and look like a CEO and have the confidence of a CEO before you actually become a CEO. And there's a huge I sometimes I struggle with being on either side of this thought, because I'm like, you can't think like a CEO before you're a CEO. That's so hard on yourself. But at the same time, it's the way people perceive you. It's what people make of you. And I don't think that this is just a Mumbai, India, entertainment, blogging, glamorous industry thing. I feel like you need to be able to exude a certain level of confidence and a certain level of respect, or command respect in a certain way, no matter who you are and where you are. I'll give you a simple example. I got a 79% in my 12th standard board exam. I did my junior college in commerce, and I really wanted to do BMM. Keep in mind that I'm I don't belong to any of the quota communities. I wanted to go to Jai Hind College here in Mumbai, and my second option was National College, which is very close to my mom's house. And my third option was MMK, and I was like, you know what, I'm already an MMK student, I'm hoping I'll get into MMK anyway. but Jai Hind and Nationals seem to be like really where I want to go. And I didn't get into either. I just didn't get into either. I had no quota. Both those colleges take Sindhi quota. A few other colleges that I had just applied and kept to, like Mitibai and all, I had just applied and kept it. Have Gujarati quota, and I had no quota, no nothing, and I had a 79.86% if I remember correctly. So I was like, I'll get in, and I just didn't get into Nationals or Jai Hind, and I was like, what is gonna happen? MMK, I got in on the third list, which really pinched my ego, obviously, because I was seeing like my own really close friend who got a 62 got in on the first list at Jai Hind because she had a quota. And obviously I felt very jealous, and I'm very vocal about, like, I'm very vocal and I'm happy for people also, and I'm very vocal when I'm jealous for them. So I called her up and I said, listen, I'm very happy to you, but you know what, go to hell, because I got like 79 and I think she got 61 or 62 or something like that, I can't remember. And this is like 2012, 8 years ago. And I was like, and I'm still standing stuck. And then finally I got in to MMK on like the third list. And I was like, oh my god, like what is going to happen? So when I actually started MMK, again, this was something that really, like, it really messed with my head, because I was so scared I wasn't going to get into anything. I had only applied for BMM everywhere. I hadn't applied for anything else anywhere. So imagine getting like a 79% and then thinking I'm not going to get in anywhere at all. Like, what is happening? I was really scared out of my mind. And then when I did get into MMK and I got into BMM, I came back home from giving them like my documents and getting my admission and my seat, securing my seat and all of that. And I remember I came back home and my mom was like, you're happy you got in, it was your third priority. And I said to my mom, this is back in 2012, I said, you know what, I can't believe that it took 3 lists for me to get my name with a 79%, because like whatever, I was really frustrated about the situation. I said, I promise I will do better and I will make it a point to be a rank holder in my BMM degree. I'd never chased ranks ever before. In school, I was never a rank holder. I did well in studies because I always enjoyed studying. But I never was like, ab main rank holder ban ke dikhaungi. And when I was in college, I literally out of 6 semesters through 3 years, I was either second or third in every single semester. There was one semester where I came 4th. And that was because that was the same semester where my exams literally started 2 days after Bombay Times Fresh Face, and I was the winner of Bombay Times Fresh Face, and I had spent 2 months prepping on that pageant. So I had come 4th that semester. But my other 5 semesters, I've literally come 2nd or 3rd. I would slog my ass off and I would make sure that I moved on from that situation to like, I will not let this happen to me again. I feel like moving on can mean so many different things to so many different people. For some people, it's just about acknowledging what happened and making them feel appreciated or apologized to, and you know that sometimes that's all you want to hear. Sometimes that is literally all you want to hear. You just want to hear and I'm sorry, or you just want to hear I won't do it again. Sometimes you just really want to see deferred actions. You want to make sure you see someone who is really making an effort to be in your life. This has gone into becoming quite an elaborate look, considering it's a self-care Sunday video. I usually keep these looks simple, or at least that's what my plan has been. But I've also had in mind for a little while that I've been wanting to do a rainbow inspired makeup look, especially since it's June. I've been wanting to do that, so I'm glad that I got to do it while I was talking about something like moving on. I think we all need to grow and evolve and learn a thing or two actually from the LGBTQIA community who've been through so much and are still moving on very strongly, strength to strength, with more of us joining and becoming their allies, if anything. I think it's very important for us to be there for one another. Every time I talk about something that's close to my heart, I know I go in like 5,000 different directions, but I'm glad that you guys are sticking with me through this journey. I feel like I want to know more from you. What would you want me to talk about? I know I have heartbreaks from you guys, and I want to talk about a few of my stories on that as well. Maybe next week. Let me know in the comments, okay? Some of the other things that have crossed my mind that I feel I want to talk about is growing your business in a very cluttered space, like just basically evolving as a human being but in the public eye. Like I feel like I've been in the public eye for the last 8 years, and of course with every year, thankfully, alhamdulillah, my audience has only grown, but the pressures of it, being able to live with this constant pressure of being present on social media but also living in the moment, I feel like these things are very underrated. And when I talk about this kind of stuff to my friends, and most of my friends actually don't belong to the digital community, like I have a few close friends who I've now, I feel, become friendly with in this industry, but a lot of my friends and most of my friends are actually people who don't belong to the blogging industry. So this is what the final look turned out like. I'm really happy with how it worked out. I was talking so much while doing this video, but I'm glad that it worked out at least close to sort of similar to what I had in mind. Okay, and I think I've shared a lot of my thoughts in today's video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed watching this. Please let me know what sort of topics you'd like for me to cover next apart from heartbreaks. I want to know what other things that you see in your regular life that you don't hear enough about, and if you don't hear enough about it on the internet. I definitely want to do my part in making you realize that if there's an imperfect part of your life, you're not alone. You have company. It can be anybody and everybody that might be able to resonate with a certain thought that you have. So if you have a certain thought, you can go ahead and leave it down below in the comments. If you feel like you're more comfortable discussing it with me, then you can go ahead and DM it to me, or you could go ahead and email it to me, and I'm sure we can have a conversation about it. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.